Welcome back. You're watching To The Point. Joining me now to discuss the UFA joint statement as well as the spin put on it earlier today by Sartaj Aziz and a moment ago by Mushahid Hussain, I have with me India's former High Commissioner to Pakistan, G. Parthasarathi, former Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, K.C. Singh, the diplomatic editor of The Hindu, Suhashini Heather, and the founding editor of the Wire.in, Siddharth Vardarajan. Siddharth Vardarajan, as recently as June, Sushma Swaraj said that talks with Pakistan could only be possible if perpetrators of terror like Lakhvi were brought to justice. Secondly, roughly 10 months ago, India abruptly called off the Foreign Secretary level talks when the Pakistan High Commissioner met with Hurriyat. Now, against that background, is Mushahid Hussain, the chairman of the Pakistan Senate Defence Committee, right to claim that Mr. Modi has done a U-turn by meeting Nawaz Sharif and UFA, or does the change in Pakistan's position on critical issues as reflected in that statement justify the meeting?
Look, I don't think one should read too much into the statement, quite frankly, because there is enough in the text in one way or the other to provide both Mr. Modi and Mr. Nawaz Sharif grounds to defend their positions. But there is no question about the fact that the Modi government has made a U-turn. It's a U-turn I welcome, but it's important to flag the fact that the government has moved away from positions it took. These were untenable positions, I think. Last year, for example, when it called off the Foreign Secretary level talks, or in the statement that you referred to of Sushma Swaraj. These are, these are untenable positions which are quite similar to positions that Indian leaders over the past 15-20 years have always taken, only to move away from those. It seems that we never learn from history. It seems that we always like to make grand pronouncements and set preconditions that finally we are obliged to discard. It would be far better for India to embrace the reality of dialogue, to get on with the business of talking, and to articulate its positions within the framework of that dialogue, rather than hold out the cancellation of talks as some great diplomatic strategy. And I think Mr. Modi perhaps has finally learned the futility of that.
K.C. Singh, let's come to the substance of the joint statement issued at UFA. First of all, there is no mention of Kashmir whatsoever. In fact, the K word is missing altogether. At best, Kashmir is subsumed in the sentence, they are prepared to discuss all outstanding issues. How do you view the complete absence of any specific reference to Kashmir?
I think just building on what Siddharth is saying, they kept it vague and there were some concessions on both sides, because the idea was that both could go home and market to their constituencies that they had not backed off. But in summation, one feels that India probably did a bigger U-turn than Pakistan did, and Pakistan has got adequate ground in the statement to defend itself, which is what Sartaj Aziz has done. Whereas what government of India is doing is they are complicating their position by getting over aggressive through their spokesman. In fact, one of them, calling him as hallucinating and things like that. Now, those are not statements to make, because if they are defending themselves before the people of Pakistan, and more importantly before their army, then you live with it. But if you did not expect that to happen, then you have misread Pakistan, because Pakistan is in a cockier, happier position today than I think BJP imagined, because they've got US working with them, they've got Afghan president asking them to be the go-between in talks with Taliban, they've got the Chinese backing them at the Security Council, you've got the Chinese giving them economic assistance, and they have entered Shanghai Cooperation Organization alongside you. So there is an equivalence. So there they are sitting very pretty and they're just watching you squirm.
You know, the truth is, in part one, you heard Mushahid Hussain, the chairman of the Pakistan Senate Defence Committee, he's also Secretary General of Mr. Nawaz Sharif's party, clearly say that in fact failure to refer to Kashmir in the joint statement was a mistake, it was a lapse. And secondly, he said the Prime Minister badly needed spin doctoring to get out of it. That's what Sartaj Aziz was doing today.
Well, he's not the Secretary General of the PMLN, he's the Secretary General of the PMLQ. That's the first thing. The second thing is, without getting into who did what to whom, I am personally very happy with what transpired. I think for the first time, Karan, I'm seeing the basis laid for a serious dialogue. I am very pleased with what Sartaj, as he said, and as a man, he's a man I respect and take seriously, because he said the July meeting served to achieve one major objective: reduce tensions and create an environment for meaningful talk on all issues of importance. Now, the fact of the matter is, this is what we've been wanting. Reduce tensions. You've got the DGMO's meeting. Hold meaningful talks on mutual concern. Terrorism is concerned to them, to us. Let the NSAs discuss it. Most important, the composite dialogue for all purposes has been dumped, which I'm mightily pleased with. And lastly, let us be very clear. We said, discuss ways and means to expedite Mumbai case
I'll come to that later. Let's stick to Kashmir for now.
Yeah. No, and Jammu and Kashmir, several communiques, including the Simla agreement, speak of this subject mutually agreed upon.
Yeah, but let me come back to you, Suhasini Haidar, and I want to push this Kashmir point with you. What do you make of the fact
Karan,
that...
one interruption. Please don't say Kashmir. It is Jammu and Kashmir.
I will say Kashmir because in the English language, that's how you pronounce it. Now,
no, Jammu and Kashmir.
Please, let us carry on with the discussion. Suhasini Haidar, I want to pursue the Kashmir issue and the Kashmir point with you. First of all, what do you make of the fact that the very word is missing altogether from the UFA statement, although Kashmir is not just Pakistan's core issue? As the High Commissioner said to me in May, it's in fact the mother of all issues. Secondly, when questioned, Sartaj Aziz goes and tells Dawn, a Pakistan newspaper, that actually Kashmir will be raised on the back channel or track 2, which suggests that it will be further demoted. What do you make of the combination of those two?
Well, I think, Karan, firstly, it must be remembered this is not the first time that a joint statement between India and Pakistan has not referred to Kashmir. The first time that happened, and that was the last time, was in 2009 during the Sharm el-Sheikh discussion, and the joint statement then too did not refer to Kashmir. I think there are 2 points to this. One, for those in India, I'm afraid, who have sort of read this as some kind of a victory and an understanding from Pakistan of India's position on Kashmir, they made not just a mistake, but they perhaps have done a disservice to the dialogue itself. So while Ambassador Parthasarathi said he takes great pleasure from the wording of the document, the fact is the kind of triumphalism that followed the joint statement seems to have led to this reaction from Pakistan. The second point really is that you can see from Mr. Sartaj Aziz's comments that there is no explanation for why Kashmir was left out, which is why you're seeing one statement made in UFA on Friday, a different statement made on Saturday in Islamabad, and then a third statement made on Monday again in Islamabad. It seems to me that the Pakistani government has come under fire and does not have a credible explanation for why it left out what it calls a core issue between India and Pakistan, Karan.
Let's come, Siddharth Varadarajan, to the second key element of the UFA statement. The sentence I'm going to quote: the decision to discuss ways and means to expedite the Mumbai trial, including additional information like providing voice samples. Now, from your standpoint, does that mean Pakistan will provide India with Lakhvi's voice sample? Or does it mean, as the Pakistanis are claiming, that India will provide solid evidence to prosecute the accused? Or is there room in that sentence for both interpretations to be feasible?
You know, I've been breaking my head around that sentence for the past 2 days, Karan, and every official that I've consulted has not been able to shed any light on what this sentence could possibly mean, because there is a very clear reference to there's a phrase, expedite the Mumbai trial, right? So there is no Mumbai trial happening in India right now. The Mumbai trial in India is over. Where the Mumbai trial is taking place and where it needs to be expedited is in Pakistan, which is the trial of Lakhvi. So to speak of voice samples being given in the context of expediting the Mumbai trial raises the obvious question, what samples are going to be given to whom to expedite which trial? And since there is no trial currently pending in India, the Pakistani construction would appear to be a reasonable one. So I think this is very poor draftsmanship, or perhaps it's been deliberately kept vague to satisfy domestic constituencies in both Pakistan and India. Either way, I think this is something that's going to haunt both leaders. The more this issue is tom-tommed in India as a great victory, the harder it will be for Mr. Modi to explain why Lakhvi's voice samples are not going to come. And I think it's always best if statements of this kind are either not made or drafted very, very precisely. And this sentence, I think, is a landmine.
KC Singh, the chief of the prosecution team in Islamabad handling the Lakhvi case, Chaudhry Azhar, has said that Pakistan will not file a fresh petition in the trial court to obtain Lakhvi's voice sample. Subsequent to that, the Pakistan High Commissioner in Delhi said yesterday, and he was advising the Indian press, don't jump to premature conclusions. Now, clearly, what Mr. Bassett said is not a contradiction of what Azhar said in Pakistan. So how worrying a cloud has Azhar cast over the joint statement?
In addition, Mushahid Hussain said something interesting in an interview. He said there is reciprocity. So he's opened yet another window, what they want from us in exchange. Now, something I think Suhasini will be competent to answer that. She's written in her piece that perhaps they can move under some new laws that they have after the Peshawar school bombing. I don't know whether that's correct or not. But then again, somebody has said those can't be retrospective. So I don't know what commitment, if any, has been given in UFA that they will have a new approach. But as per the existing Pakistani law, as indeed in India, you can't force an accused to self-incriminate. You can't forcibly take a sample. If that is the case, who's going to amend their Evidence Act or their law, or is just a flash in the pan?
Let me put this to you, and I'm trying to sort of rise above the details to come to a point that I put earlier to Mushahid Hussain. Terror is our key issue and concern. Kashmir is theirs. Earlier, they were both being handled at the Foreign Secretary level. Now, terror has been elevated to the NSA level. Whilst Kashmir is no longer going to be discussed by Foreign Secretaries, as Sartaj Aziz told on, it will be handled either by the back channel or even by track 2, which sounds a bit difficult to accept, but he said it. So do you get the feeling that these two key issues, which are the two key issues of either country, are no longer being treated at the same level of importance? Terror has gone up, Kashmir has slipped.
Well, the first thing is, back channel was really envoys of the level of ministers. Sati Lamba at the rank of Minister of State. So I think I wouldn't say special envoys is downgrading it, but track 2 certainly is. So I think, but the reason for that is within Pakistan, they use the terms back channel and track 2 rather loosely. So I wouldn't fault them on that score. They use it loosely, whereas I may not. The other thing is, I think we should be very, very clear that with regard to Lakhvi, the army will not allow it, and the Sharif family for 2 generations has had a close tie with the Lashkar-e-Taiba. It's not going to come about.
Suhasini had that if in the end the critical voice sample from Lakhvi is not forthcoming, and many people believe that without that voice sample he probably will be acquitted, not convicted, because there's no way then of holding the intercepts that we've given as substantial evidence. How much of a dampener will that be as far as the initial Indian reading of UFA goes?
Look, Karan, a lot of this is really in, as Siddharth very rightly pointed out, is in the understanding of what that UFA statement said. The truth is that Lakhvi's voice sample is not really needed in India at all in terms of the trial, but could actually facilitate the NIA's charge sheets against Lakhvi and others if there was to be a match. So in India, it would be an extra, it would help India's case, but in Pakistan, as you said, it would be clinching evidence. Now, what's further complicated the issue is that Lakhvi himself is now out on bail and has been exempted from any court hearings. So the likelihood of him coming back to court for a while is going to be difficult, and it's anyone's guess whether they'll be able to get from Lakhvi the voice samples that they were not able to get for the 8 years that he was in custody. Ambassador KC Singh's point is also valid. The Indian and Pakistani officials seem to have got the understanding that under 2 new laws that were passed in 2013 and another one in 2015, that the government could actually use voices that have been obtained by whatever manner in order to conduct terrorism investigations. What this loosely will mean, Karan, is that Lakhvi's voice samples have already been taken. That they were taken when the Pakistan government had actually promised them maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The voice samples remain to be matched with Indian voice samples, and if the Pakistan government felt like or was pushed into actually using these voice samples, they could technically have some kind of a match and a breakthrough and clinching evidence and all of that. But here I do agree with Ambassador Parthasarathy. The chances of all of this are very minimal given the track record of the past few years.
Very quickly, in an article, Ambassador Parthasarathy, that you wrote for the Economic Times on the 11th of July, you said that President Xi Jinping of China had probably put pressure on Pakistan to provide Lakhvi's voice sample. Now Pakistan is trying to wriggle out of doing so, if one can go by what Mushahid Hussain was saying to me a moment ago, if one can go by what Chaudhry Azhar has been saying 2 days earlier. If China was the influential pressure point, can Pakistan wriggle out?
I think China will not push Pakistan beyond a point, because Pakistan and China are collaborating very closely on Afghanistan. They must have told them, go easy. But they're not going to push Pakistan beyond a point, no. Especially given the Afghan situation.
Very quickly, Mr. Casey Singh, this whole issue seems to have become a little bit of a political embarrassment for Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, which is why Sardar Aziz was firefighting, which is why Mushahid Hussain said to me a moment ago, not mentioning Kashmir by name was a mistake, which is why he added Nawaz Sharif should have taken spin doctors. Now he's having to desperately spin doctor after the event. Could that embarrassment for him in Pakistan become a dampener from the Indian point of view?
Well, this has always been an issue. I handled 3 summits. Fortunately, no boo-boo took place that time. But we've had a problem with India-Pakistan summits. And it's about the post-summit messaging. How do you do it? It tends to spin out of control sometimes. And that is, I think, what is beginning to happen. Because there will be a counter-reaction here. When unfortunately, because Prime Minister was traveling and continues to travel for 4 or 5 days after the event, no one is available in Delhi of sufficient seniority like Sardar Aziz, who can sit down and talk to the media and moderate it or tune it or fine tune it or calibrate it. So at the moment it's free for all, and that can make it spin out of control on both sides.
Very quickly, Siddharth Varadarajan, we have just 20 seconds, so I'll ask you for a really short answer. Many in India believed after Ufa that perhaps an important page has turned. Do you think that may prove to be more hope than reality?
No, I'm hopeful that the 2 Prime Ministers have done this conscious of the difficulties that are involved. But the first step has to be an end to the rhetoric and the verbal slanging that we've seen over the last month. It's unfortunate that BJP spokespersons, in defending what has happened in Ufa, are saying things which just complicate the relationship further. If Mr. Modi is to make this decision succeed, I think he has to ensure that everybody on his side is on the same page, and that the messaging, the volume and heat level of political messaging is reduced.
All right, gentlemen, I think we're going to have to leave it there. Harshni, my thanks to you in particular for joining me. My thanks also to Siddharth Varadarajan, Casey Singh and Mr. Parthasarathy. And there we end this particular episode. If you have been, thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night.